So over the past week, I've been experimenting with using colored gels for lighting. So they're like pigmented colored plastic that goes over lights, and it can create cool effects like this edge lighting, like red over the shoulder, and some like blue in the front. And also the background that's behind me, you can like create clashing gradients of colors, and it's kind of cool. So it can be like commercial stuff, just portraits, really cool stuff. So instead of starting with video, I tried to start using these gels with photography because it's still images and you can really, like, you have more control and it's not, nothing's moving, so it's a good starting place. So it all started with me trying to figure out the gels. So like something interesting about them is some of them are very non-saturated, some are very saturated. And what I found out is that it's kind of interesting that the non-saturated ones, when you shoot in RAW, you can actually bring the saturation up and pull it out of the photo, which is super cool. So like if you have like a green, it's like super, you can't really see it with your own eyes. But then you bring it into Photoshop and you can crank the green up to a point you couldn't see, but it's really cool. And some of the end products, you'll see that there's a ton of color, even though it might have not been there in the original photo. And here are some of the basic gels that go on the camera. Here's like a saturated, not very saturated pink. And you got like a very saturated blue. There's a bunch here, such as yellow, green, orange, and all that. So it all started with me trying to figure out lighting. I didn't look into anything when I started. So what happened is I ended up putting my edge lighting, the one that's behind the shoulder and kind of gives you that glow around your head, I ended up putting that sort of in the front of my subject. And what that did is that the front lighting, like lighting me right now, would wash out the edge lighting. So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, my lights aren't bright enough, or what is it? So I got a little frustrated, to be honest, but I looked into it and went online. And what I found was that the edge lighting needs to be behind the subject at shoulder level, so it doesn't bleed over, so it's only an edge light. And also that makes it so the front light, like the one lighting me, does not wash out your edge lighting. So here's a little bit of more information on what I did. So how I started the project was I had one light here, the subject would be standing here, and then I had the front light here. And what that did was that both lights were facing at the subject, so this was supposed to be the outline. They wash each other out. So what I had to do is I had to take this light, is what I did, and I put it back here, and I moved it like basically just out of frame behind your background, so that the blue light here, the red light, they're facing at each other, so that the subject in the middle, you can almost see it on my hand right now. I go like this, blue on one side, red on the other side. So they're not desaturating each other, which is really nice. And then also what I noticed is that the light that lights the subject can't be like white. It can be, but that washes out the colors. So what you can do is use colors on all your lights. So the lighting for the front of the face and the edge lighting are colored. So what I ended up starting with was red back edge lighting and a blue front face. And that helped all the colors be super saturated, which was what you're going for when you want to do neon photography. What you can also do is you can combine red and blue and get purple. And that's a nice way to get like a rich purple. Doesn't look too purple on here, but it is purple. So that was the first hurdle to get over, and honestly, it was quite frustrating, but once you figure it out, it's quite satisfying. And yeah, so then it was like trying to figure out, so if you want to light a background, and then you want to light a face, and an edge lighting, then you got like 4 or 5 lights. So I had to figure out how to stretch 2 lights. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking 1 light for edge lighting rather than 2, which is recommended, but just 1 works fine. If you angle your subject right, you can get enough what you need. And then take another 1 for the front lighting, so that's 2 covered. And for the background, I just took a shop light with a big old fluorescent tube and put that shooting up of a smooth screen. here's the shop light that I took. And it's basically just your standard fluorescent light that you'd see at like a school or a business. And it's just one tube. And here, just propped on this box, shining up like a gradient. So that was cool, because basically what that did is, so it's not a black void that the background is. And what's cool is that the edge lighting and the front lighting lit the background with color, which gave it enough saturation to change the color of the background in Photoshop naturally, without like artificial coloring and unnatural looking stuff. So that was really cool. Like, you can stretch two lights to light more than one thing. So that was cool. And about the screen, I tried using a sheet and it did not go well. A sheet is like wrinkly and it's just odd. So what I did is I took our movie screen that we project movies onto, that we made over the summer, which is just a pulled sheet stapled over a wood frame. So it's super tight, no wrinkles. That's what's behind me right now. And it worked really well because it was super smooth, so like a gradient of light could rise up through it. So that was super, super nice. A lot better than a sheet. But a sheet can work if you pull it tight enough and iron it. It could work. You just need to put a lot of work into it. When we were taking the photos, it was interesting because we had this Arizona cam, and it was like, what colors do you use? We had red and blue. It looked like a 3D movie from like the early 2000s. So what we decided to do is that was the color scheme. And then in Photoshop, I changed the background to orange, which made more sense for an Arizona tea. And then kept the red and blue, but made them more of a neon fluorescent sign kind of color, which worked better with the orange. And overall, I think that the project came together really well. Like, it started really rough. Like, colors super non-saturated, just everything not really working too well. And it came together to something just rich, which is super weird. I didn't even think I'd ever get to that rich color I was looking for. And interestingly enough, that rich color didn't really come from Photoshop. It just was lifted, the colors in the raw photo, which is just super cool. So that's why it looks natural. And overall, I think this whole project was really cool. And this was kind of a week project for using the lights. Next week or other weeks, we'll probably be just doing normal lighting like this. Not color lighting with gels, so just normal studio lighting, interview lighting, and other stuff like that. So this is week 1 of a potential project list for fun. So stay tuned for more, and I hope you enjoyed the video.